Hi, Alicia. How are you?
Rachel, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. So to start, one of I love Nic Cage very dearly, but in order for a Nic Cage performance to kind of pop, the people around him have to be grounded in the way that they need to be. And I think this movie does such a good job of like building these characters out to let Longlegs kind of have that Nic Cage fear that everyone loves. And what I really love is that we don't know a lot about your character throughout most of the movie, but she still has this kind of mystery and groundedness to her. When you were approaching her as a character, was there anything you specifically did to kind of make sure that she kept that groundedness, even though she was a little like not fully there as a mother?
That's a great question. Yes, I think it's safe to say that as the story goes on, Ruth's groundedness
Mm-hmm.
shifts.
Yeah.
And in the beginning of the story, when we meet her, I think there's issues and backstory that I made up for her, and
Mm-hmm.
some of which I talked about with Oz ahead of time, and some of which I didn't. But I had a strong mystical sense that I knew in every fiber of my being who Ruth was from the moment I read her on the page.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt grounded in the knowing of her. And then I felt validated and overjoyed to talk to Oz in our first Zoom before I'd been offered the role and discovered that we were on the same page about who she was. So even when Ruth didn't feel grounded, I felt grounded. I felt like all I needed to do was channel this character that I felt was inside of me at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have to work very hard to find her. She arrived. And I don't really know what she looks like from the outside. It's was such a personal experience.
Yeah, and I've said this to everyone today. This is like one of the scariest movies I've watched in recent years. And normally like I get scared just like while I'm in there and I'm fine, but I was so tense. I was like, I'm gonna have a heart attack watching Longlegs. Like, I was like, I'm just gonna die in this movie theater. But it does have that feeling, but I know that is not how you film it. Like that tense energy comes across later. And so when you watched it, or if you've seen it, how was the disconnect between like knowing what you film versus seeing how tense and kind of nerve-wracking the movie ends up being in the final product?
I have chosen to not watch the movie.
Well, it's very tense.
Yeah, it's not because of that. I've seen Oz's previous three films. When I
Mhm.
was offered the role and I delved into his work, I was just stunned by the level of filmmaking and the skill with which he scares.
Mhm.
Those are my favorite kinds of horror movies or thrillers, where it's not about the gore and the slasher and the blood. It's
Mhm.
about, there's a moment in I Am the Pretty Thing that made me scream out loud, and nothing happens in it. It's one of the best scares I've ever seen. Um, but that's not why I'm not seeing the movie. I'm not seeing it because I feel like what came out of me is something that needed to come out in a weird
Mhm.
way. I think it was partly in there anyway. Now it's out there. Um, yeah, so I'm not seeing it, but I think that his ability, Oz's ability as a filmmaker to channel the dark is largely informed by how in touch he is with the light. And I would say that's true of everyone involved with this.
Yeah, I loved this movie a lot. I watched a lot of it through my hands, but I loved it a lot. And thank you so much for talking with me, and I can't wait for everyone to get to see Longlegs.
Thank you.